They'll lynch you, but he did, and he laughs.
Hello West Ham Network, it's Holly. Happy Friday and I hope you're all well. The Rice saga has been the main transfer story around West Ham, with many getting frustrated. All the talk is pretty much about outgoing players and there's very little happening in terms of signing new players. But there is actually good reason for this. And before you slate me, let me explain why. So the structure of the Rice deal is going to play a massive part in, first of all, how much we can spend this transfer window, but also in future windows. And today I'm going to be taking a look at why we can't really spend until we have the money for Rice. And for anybody who isn't aware, this is due to financial fair play regulations. I'm going to be putting my maths to the test and trying to explain why we need money coming in before any more can go out. So UEFA's FFP regulations are a lot more strict than the Premier League's. They allow for losses of 60 million euros over the period of 3 years, which is the equivalent of just over 50 million pounds. And in comparison to the Premier League's 105 million, this basically leaves us with a lot less money to play with every transfer window. And West Ham received a warning earlier in the year alongside 18 other European clubs, informing us that we are officially on their watch list and that additional financial information will be needed, as well as them monitoring us very closely. So basically, we are at risk of breaching those regulations. And this is because from 2023, UEFA stopped allowing for what they call exceptional COVID deductions and consideration of historical financial results, which is every bit as exciting as it sounds. But this is where they basically let clubs get away with higher losses because of COVID to help recover the costs of things like not having fans in the stadium. So here is a little table to help run you through all of the lovely facts and figures. So during that time, we lost £65 million in 2020, 26.5 million in 2021, and then we made a profit of 10.5 million in 2022. So for all of our sanity, by the way, I'm working out the numbers to a £50 million limit. Obviously, I said it is 60 million euros, and this does change with the exchange rate, but we're going to say £50 million because I don't want to confuse things more than I need to. It's already a little bit confusing. So to sum it up, we lost a total of £81 million in those 3 years you can see there, which is £31 million over the usual limit. But as I said, we were allowed to get away with that because they got the COVID exception going on. But from 2023, this was no longer allowed, and we suddenly had to start sticking to losing a maximum of £50 million over every 3 year period. So the financial year for 2023, it ended on the 31st of May, and we haven't got the loss or profit figure for 2023 yet, but it will obviously include the £165 million that we spent last summer, which is therefore expected to lead to another loss for 2023. So basically, we need to make sure that we stay within the £50 million 3-year rolling loss. So spending too much this window before getting the guaranteed money from Rice could get us into trouble with financial fair play regulations and also impact future seasons unless we can make money from elsewhere. So now I'm going to show you an example of what would happen if we push that 3-year £50 million loss to the max, as I'm sure a lot of us would love to see. So here is why it wouldn't actually work. And based on the 3-year rolling period, we would have been able to have lost £34 million in the 2023 financial year, as in the previous 2 years, we'd only lost a total of 16 million, which is pretty impressive. So let's just say in 2023, we lost that £34 million. Then in 2024, we could theoretically lose a further 26.5 million. And that would be allowed, taking into the account the profit we made and keeping us at a £50 million loss over those 3 years. But if we did that in 2025, we would then have no choice but to make a profit of at least £10.5 million to avoid breaching those FFP regulations. Now, to sum it up, this £50 million 3-year loss limit means we can't really have multiple high spending transfer windows within 3 years unless we're able to recover that money from elsewhere, which usually involves selling our best players or good players, which we are likely to want to avoid. And taking a look at the clubs that have broken those rules, PSG were fined €65 million for FFP, and UEFA have threatened to ban clubs from UEFA competitions, as well as banning them from registering new players if they fail to comply. So they do take it pretty seriously. And that is why we need to know the exact money and payment structure from the Rice sale. And we need it to be in a decent chunk, ideally, as well, before we can safely start spending serious sums of money on any new signings. Because as we've kind of run through there, we might be able to technically spend more, but if within the next 3 years we start overspending that 50 million, we end up in a difficult situation. And you've seen clubs like that before where they've had to then sell their best players just to meet the regulations, and we definitely don't want to be starting that. And then we'd obviously be able to start spending decent amounts of money on new signings. And of course, we can afford 20 million or so. But when you look at the type of player that's actually going to get you at the moment, I think we can all agree that we won't find a Rice replacement for that amount, or many first team worthy players within that budget anyway. So there you have it. I hope that makes sense. I tried really hard to make it as straightforward as possible, but numbers all over the place. That's the most maths I've done since I was about 16. So hopefully it's all correct. Maths lesson done for the day. Have a great start to the weekend. Thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to like the video, drop us a comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, come on you